Admiral Taiho Park stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dawn and watched the stars through the massive window. Behind him, 300 officers worked at their stations. In front of him, something no human had ever seen before filled the darkness of space. Alien ships. Thousands of them. Ships of every shape and size. Made by species that humanity had only dreamed about. Today was supposed to be a day of celebration. First contact. The day humanity would join the galactic community. Taiho had spent 30 years in the military waiting for this moment. He had imagined handshakes, treaties, and the beginning of a new age. He had not imagined this. The holographic screen in the center of the bridge showed the Galactic Council Chamber. 47 different alien species sat in a massive circular room. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some were made of crystal. And some looked like nothing Taiho could describe. They had been arguing about humanity for 6 hours. Dr. Unikong stood beside the Admiral. She was 62 years old, Earth's most respected xenobiologist. She had spent her entire life preparing for this day. Her hands were shaking. Not from excitement, from fear. They are not debating whether to welcome us, she whispered to Taiho. They are debating whether to destroy us. Taiho said nothing. He had reached the same conclusion an hour ago. On the screen, a tall, crystalline being rose from its seat. The translation system identified it as the council speaker, a member of a species called the Vorian. Its voice was cold and sharp, like breaking glass. The evidence is clear, the speaker said. We have studied the species called humans for 200 of their years. We have watched them from the shadows. We have seen their history, their wars, their weapons, their endless hunger for more. The speaker waved one hand, and images appeared in the air. Human history. The wars, the bombs, the fire that humans had used against each other for thousands of years. The aliens watched in silence. They killed millions of their own kind, the speaker continued. They burned their own world. They created weapons that could destroy everything. And still, they survived. Still, they grew stronger. This is not a species that learns peace. This is a species that learns war. Yuna felt sick. She wanted to shout that humans had changed, that they had learned from their mistakes, that the last 300 years had been peaceful, but she knew it would not matter. The council had already made its decision. A smaller alien, covered in blue feathers, spoke next. The simulations are complete. If humans are allowed to spread, they will control 30% of the galaxy within 1,000 years. Within 3,000 years, they will control everything. Every other species will be absorbed or destroyed. This is not a prediction, the speaker added. This is a certainty. Humans are a Category 0 extinction threat. The most dangerous classification possible. Taiho finally spoke. His voice was calm, but his heart was pounding. And what does the council plan to do about this threat? The speaker turned toward the screen. For a moment, Taiho thought he saw something in those crystal eyes. Regret, perhaps. Or maybe just cold calculation.
Out!
The council has voted. The decision is final. Humanity will surrender all military vessels. Humanity will abandon all colonies outside their home system. Humanity will return to Earth and remain there, permanently quarantined, until such time as they prove they can be trusted. Silence filled the bridge of the Eternal Dawn. Every officer stopped working. Every eye turned to the Admiral. And if we refuse? Taiho asked. The speaker did not hesitate. Then the council fleet will ensure compliance. 10,000 warships are positioned around your colonies. Your species has 200 vessels. The mathematics are simple, Admiral. Surrender or be destroyed. Taiho looked at Yuna. She was crying now, silent tears running down her face. Not for herself. For humanity. For all the dreams that were dying in this moment. May I speak? Yuna asked suddenly. The council chamber went quiet. The speaker nodded. Yuna stepped forward, her voice shaking but clear. You have shown our worst moments. Our wars, our cruelty, our mistakes. But you have not shown what came after. You have not shown how we rebuilt, how we learned, How we turned our worst weapons into tools for peace. You judge us for our past, but you fear us for our future. She paused, looking at the alien faces on the screen. You are not afraid of what we have done. You are afraid of what we might become. You see our potential, and it terrifies you. But potential is not a crime. Growth is not a threat. We came here hoping to be friends. We came here hoping to learn from you and share what we have learned. Instead, you offer us a cage. The speaker's crystal face showed no emotion. Your words are eloquent, Dr. Kang. But words do not change simulations. Words do not alter probability. The Council's decision stands. Taiho stepped forward. Then let me offer humanity's response. He pressed a button on his console. Across every human world, on every ship, in every colony, his face appeared on screens. People of Earth and all human colonies, you have heard the Council's verdict. They have judged us guilty of being human. They demand that we surrender our ships, abandon our homes, and return to Earth as prisoners. They believe we will accept this because their fleet is larger than ours. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was iron. They do not know us. They have studied our wars, but they do not understand why we fight. We do not fight because we love destruction. We fight because we refuse to surrender what is ours. Our freedom, our future, our right to exist among the stars. The council chamber erupted in noise. Aliens shouted in 100 different languages. But Taiho continued, humanity does not kneel. Humanity does not break. You have made your choice, Council. Now witness ours. He ended the transmission and turned to his crew, sent a message to Earth Command. Tell them to prepare for war. Yuna grabbed his arm. Taiho, they have 10,000 ships. We have 200. This is suicide. The Admiral looked at her with eyes that had seen too much and lost too much to care about odds. They think numbers win wars, he said. They are about to learn what humans already know. Wars are not won by ships or weapons. Wars are won by the people who refuse to stop fighting. Outside the window, the Council fleet began to move. The largest military force in galactic history, assembled to crush a species that had only just learned to travel between stars. They expected surrender. They expected fear. They expected humanity to do the logical thing. They did not understand humans at all, and by the time they did, it would be far too late. The United Earth Parliament met in an underground bunker beneath the ruins of what was once called New York. Above them, council ships filled the sky, blocking out the sun. They had given humanity 72 hours to surrender. 48 hours had already passed. Supreme Commander Jinho Beek stood before the assembled leaders of Earth. He was 60 years old, a soldier who had never lost a battle in his entire career. But he had never faced anything like this. No human had. The Council fleet has surrounded every human colony, he reported. They have 10,000 warships. We have 216. Their ships are larger, faster, and more advanced. Every military computer on Earth has calculated our odds of victory. He paused. The odds are 0. The room was silent. Presidents, prime ministers, and generals stared at the floor. Some had already written surrender speeches. Some had already made peace with death. Then, a woman stood up. Ambassador Yoon Ji-han, humanity's chief diplomat, who had spent 20 years building bridges between nations. She walked to the center of the room. I have a question, she said. When the Council showed us their simulations, they said humans would take over the galaxy. They said it was certain, a probability of 100%. She looked around the room. If they are so sure we will win in the end, why are they so afraid? Why bring 10,000 ships to crush 200? Why not just wait and see if their simulations are wrong? Ginho understood immediately. Because they are not certain. They are terrified. They have never seen a species like us before, Yoonji nodded. They have watched us for 200 years. They have seen us survive everything. Wars, plagues, ice ages, asteroids, nuclear weapons. We destroyed ourselves a dozen times, and a dozen times we rebuilt. That is what scares them. Not our weapons. Our survival. A young general named Do-Yan Choi stood up. Then we give them something to be scared of. The vote took 30 minutes. For the first time in human history, every nation on Earth agreed on something. The declaration was broadcast on every frequency, in every language, to every corner of the galaxy. Humanity does not break. You have made your choice. Now witness ours. War had begun. The Battle of Proxima Centauri happened 3 days later. The Council sent 800 ships to destroy humanity's largest military base. They expected it to be easy. Their weapons were better. Their shields were stronger. Their numbers were overwhelming. They did not expect Captain Min Ji-yoon. She was 34 years old, commander of the destroyer Iron Will. Her ship was small, old and held together with spare parts and stubbornness. Her crew of 120 had never faced real combat. None of them expected to survive the day. Captain, her first officer, said, "The enemy formation is standard. They are positioning for a long-range bombardment. Our shields will not survive more than 3 direct hits." Minji smiled. It was not a happy smile. "Then we will not let them hit us from long range." She pushed the engines to maximum and flew straight into the heart of the enemy formation. The Council ships tried to track her, but she was moving too fast, too unpredictably. She flew between enemy vessels so close that their weapons could not fire without hitting each other. "They're not following," her weapons officer reported. "Their computers will not allow maneuvers this dangerous." "Good," Minji said. "Fire everything. The iron will tore through the enemy formation like a knife." She destroyed 12 ships before they even understood what was happening. And she was not alone. Across the battlefield, human captains were doing the same thing, flying like they had nothing to lose, fighting like they were already dead. The Council commanders were confused. Their tactical computers kept saying the humans should retreat. The humans kept attacking. Their formations kept breaking. Human ships kept appearing where they should not be, doing things that should be impossible. Admiral Taiho Park commanded the battle from the eternal dawn. He watched his pilots perform maneuvers that their training said were suicidal. He watched engineers repair damage in the middle of combat. He watched wounded soldiers refuse to leave their stations. "Sir," his tactical officer said, "we have lost 63 ships. The enemy has lost 412. The numbers were wrong. They had to be wrong. No force this small should be winning against odds. It's bad, but they were winning." The Council fleet retreated after 8 hours. They had lost 817 ships. Humanity had lost 64. The largest military force in galactic history had run from a species that was not supposed to exist. Min Ji-yoon's ship was destroyed in the final hour of the battle. A Council cruiser caught her from behind and tore the Iron Will apart. Her crew ejected into space, floating in nothing but emergency suits. Most species would have waited for rescue. Most species would have accepted defeat. Mingi and her crew used their suit thrusters to land on the hull of the cruiser that had killed their ship. They cut through the airlock with emergency torches. They fought through the corridors with tools and fists. They captured the ship when rescue finally arrived. Minji was sitting in the enemy captain's chair, covered in blood that was not entirely her own. "Ship secured," she reported, requesting permission to return to combat. Across the galaxy, alien species watched the battle footage in horror. They saw human ships flying into certain death and winning. They saw human soldiers laughing as they walked away from explosions. They saw human engineers building weapons from the wreckage of their own. Destroyed vessels. The Council had promised a quick victory. The Council had promised that humanity would break. Ambassador Yoon Ji-han delivered humanity's response to the stunned Council chamber. "You wanted us gone? You said we were a threat because we survive. You were right. We do survive. We survive wars. We survive plagues. We survive the death of our ships and the loss of our friends. We survive because that is what humans do. And now, Council, you will learn what happens when you try to kill something that refuses to die." She leaned forward, her eyes burning with cold fire. "You wanted to see what we could become. Now you will see it. And you will remember why you were right to be afraid." The transmission ended. The war continued, and somewhere in the darkness of space, Captain Minji-Yoon was already planning her next attack. The galaxy had tried to crush humanity in one quick strike. They had failed. Now they would learn what it meant to fight a war against a species. They did not know how to quit. The fire they had tried to extinguish was spreading, and it would not stop until it had consumed everything in its path. 5 years passed. The Galactic Council threw everything they had at humanity. 12 species combined their fleets. They outnumbered humans 50-1. They had weapons that could crack planets. They had technology that was thousands of years more advanced. It was not enough. General Doyen Choi sat in a bunker on a moon that did not have a name anymore. The council had burned its name away along with everything else on the surface. He was writing orders for the next attack while drinking cold coffee and ignoring the pain in his leg. He had lost the real leg 2 years ago. The replacement worked fine. His strategy was simple. He called it the doctrine of endless spite. Do not fight fair. Do not fight where they expect you. Do not stop fighting even when you should be dead. The council expected humans to defend their worlds. Instead, humans abandoned them. They let the council burn empty cities, while human fleets struck supply lines 1,000 light-years away. They hid weapons in asteroids. They turned cargo ships into bombs. They fought with everything they had and everything they could steal. When the council destroyed a human colony, humans rebuilt it. When the council killed 1 million humans, the survivors worked twice as hard. When the council thought they had one, humans attacked again from a direction no one expected. The aliens could not understand it. Their computers said humans should have surrendered long ago. The casualties were too high. The losses were too great. Any logical species would have given up, but humans were not logical. Humans were stubborn, and humans were very, very angry. Lieutenant Hannah Seo became a legend during the 3rd year of the war. She was 26 years old and flew a fighter that was older than she was. In her first battle, she destroyed 3 enemy ships and crashed into a 4th. Everyone thought she was dead. She was not dead. She crawled out of the wreckage, found an abandoned enemy shuttle, taught herself to fly it in 20 minutes, and returned to combat. She flew 73 missions. She was shot down 11 times. Every time, she survived. Every time she came back, the council put a bounty on her head worth more than some planets. She recorded a message thanking them for the honor and promising to collect the bounty. Herself someday, her squadron painted her words on their ships. I am not dead yet. Deep in council space, Agent Sun-Woo Kim led teams of human infiltrators. They were spies, saboteurs, and ghosts. They learned alien languages in months, a process that took other species decades. They adapted to alien food, alien air, and alien customs. They became invisible. Sun-Woo's team destroyed a council shipyard by themselves. They spent 6 months working as maintenance staff, learning every system, every weakness. When they finally struck, the explosion could be seen from 3 systems away. The council called humans monsters. They said humans had no honor. They did not understand that honor was a luxury humans could not afford. Not against 50-1 odds. Not when their entire species was fighting for survival. Chief Engineer Naeem Park changed the war in the 4th year. Her team captured a council research station and spent 6 months studying everything inside. Technology that had taken the council species 2 centuries to develop, Nahan reverse-engineered in 6 months. She did not just copy their technology. She improved it. Human ships started appearing with shields twice as strong as council ships. Human weapons started hitting twice as hard. Human engines started moving twice as fast. The council could not understand how it was possible. They had been building starships for 10,000 years. Humans had been building them for less than 400, but humans learned faster. Humans adapted quicker. Humans took every setback and turned it into a lesson. Admiral Taiho Park died in the 4th year of the war. His flagship was destroyed, defending a refugee convoy. His last order was to keep fighting. His last words were, "Make them remember us." They did. Dr. Unikong took command of the scientific division. She was 70 years old now, too old to fight, but not too old to work. Her teams developed new weapons, new shields, and new medicines. They cured diseases that council doctors called incurable. They solved problems that council scientists called impossible. When asked how humans could learn so fast, she gave a simple answer. "We have been solving impossible problems since we discovered fire. This is just another one." The turning point came in the 5th year. Human forces captured a major council shipyard intact. For the first time, humanity could build ships as fast as they lost them. For the first time, the numbers started to change. General Doyon Choi looked at the reports and smiled. It was not a happy smile. He had lost too many friends to be happy. But it was a satisfied smile. "They tried to destroy us in one quick strike," he said to his staff. "They failed. They tried to starve us. They failed. They tried to outlast us. They failed. Now they are running out of options." He pointed at a map of the galaxy. Council territory covered most of it. Human territory was a small cluster of dots. But those dots were growing. "They made one mistake," he continued. "They assumed that because we fight each other, we would fragment under pressure. They did not understand that human conflict was practice. When we have an outside enemy, we unite. When we are pushed, we push back. When we are told something is impossible, we do it anyway." He looked at his officers. They were tired. They were wounded. Some of them would not survive the next battle. But none of them wanted to stop. "The council wanted to see what humanity could become," Doyon said. "They are about to find out." Outside the bunker, human ships launched into space. They were not just defending anymore. They were attacking. They were growing. They were becoming exactly what the council had feared. And they were just getting started. 10 years after the war began, the Galactic Council broke. It started with whispers. Species talking to each other in secret, away from council chambers. They had seen the numbers. They had watched human territory grow from 12 systems to 50. They had counted their dead and calculated how many more they would lose. The mathematics were clear. The council was losing. 3 species defected first. The Kaleri, the Norum, and the Thesa sent messages to humanity requesting peace. They had lost too much. Their people were tired of dying in a war they no longer believed they could win. They offered information, resources, and their vote in council chambers. Humanity accepted. Fleet. Admiral Jiho Kwan received the news on the bridge of the Imperial Dawn. The newest and largest ship in the human fleet. He was 45 years old, a man who had been a junior officer when the war started. He had fought in more battles than he could remember. He had lost more friends than he could count. 3 species, his aide said. That leaves the council with 44. For now, Jiho replied. More will follow. He was right. Within 6 months, 7 more species declared neutrality. They would not fight for humanity, but they would not fight against them either. They simply wanted the war to end. The remaining council members turned on each other. Old alliances crumbled. Old grudges resurfaced. Species that had worked together for millennia now blamed each other for awakening the human threat. The council speaker, the crystalline being who had pronounced humanity's death sentence a decade ago, watched his alliance fall apart. He had been so certain. His simulations had been so clear. Humanity should have been destroyed in the first year. Instead, humanity had grown stronger with every battle. He had made one fatal mistake. He had assumed humans would react like every other species. He had assumed they would break under pressure. Humans did not break. Humans bent, and then they snapped back twice as hard. Empress Sujin Lee addressed the galaxy from the bridge of the Imperial Dawn. She was 42 years old and had never wanted to be an empress. Before the war, she had been a schoolteacher in a small colony that did not exist anymore. The council had burned it in the first wave of attacks. Her husband had died protecting their children. Her children had died anyway. She had joined the military the next day. She had risen through the ranks not because she was the best soldier, but because she was the most determined. When humanity decided they needed a single leader to unite them, they chose her. Not because she was powerful, because she had lost everything and kept fighting anyway. "People of the galaxy," she said, her voice calm and cold. "For 10 years, you have tried to destroy us. You have burned our worlds. You have killed our families. You have thrown everything you have at us, and we are still here." She paused. Behind her, through the windows of the bridge, the human fleet filled space. 3,000 ships, each one more advanced than anything the Council had. Each one crewed by soldiers who had grown up knowing nothing but war. "You called us monsters before we had done anything wrong. You caged us before we could prove you wrong. Look now at what you have created. We did not want an empire. You forced it upon us. We did not want to rule the galaxy. You gave us no choice." Her eyes were hard. There was no mercy in them. But there was no hatred either. Just exhaustion and iron will. "This is our offer. Surrender unconditionally. Accept human rule. Pay for the damage you have caused. In exchange, you will live. You will keep your worlds, your cultures, and your people. We will not do to you what you tried to do to us." She leaned forward. "Or refuse, and watch your species become a memory." The Council capital was a station the size of a small moon. It had been built over 3,000 years by hundreds of species working together. It was the heart of galactic civilization. It was supposed to be unconquerable. The human assault fleet arrived on a Tuesday, Sergeant. Ujin Kong was 23 years old. He had been born during the war and had never known peace. His father had died when he was 7. His mother had died when he was 12. He had been raised by the military, trained to fight, and told that someday the war would end. Today was that day. His squad landed on the station's outer hull while the fleet pounded its shields. They cut through the metal with plasma torches and dropped into the corridors below. The station's defenders were waiting for them. The fighting was brutal. Wu Jin lost 9 soldiers in the first hour. He kept pushing forward. His orders were clear: reach the Council chamber and secure it. The station's shields fell after 3 days of bombardment. Human Marines poured through every breach. They fought room by room, corridor by corridor. The defenders fought hard, but they were not fighting for survival. They were fighting because they had no other choice. Wujin's squad reached the Council chamber on the 4th day. The doors were sealed. His engineer blew them open with the last of their explosives. Inside, the remaining Council members waited. The speaker stood at the center, his crystal body cracked and dim. He had not slept in days. He had watched his alliance crumble and his species face extinction. He had nothing left. "You've won," he said. His voice was still cold, but now it was also tired. "Finish it." Ujin lowered his weapon. Around him, his squad did the same. "No," he said. The speaker stared at him. "No, we are not here to kill you. We are here to accept your surrender." For the first time in 10 years, the speaker showed emotion. Confusion? "You are not going to destroy us? After everything we did to you?" Wujin shook his head. "That is not who we are. That is not who we want to be. You tried to make us into monsters. We refused." He pulled out a Terran Empire flag and walked to the center of the chamber. The speaker watched as he planted it in the floor. "The war is over," Wujin said. "You lost. But you are still alive. That is more than you offered us." He looked at the alien faces around him. Former enemies. Future subjects. Maybe, someday, future friends. "Welcome to the Terran Empire." Outside, the guns fell silent. Across the galaxy, the news spread. The Council had fallen. Humanity had won, and they had won without. It's becoming the monsters everyone had expected them to be. Empress Sujin received the news in silence. She did not celebrate. She did not smile. She simply closed her eyes and remembered everyone who had died to reach this moment. Her husband, her children, Admiral Taiho, millions of soldiers. Billions of civilians, they had paid the price. Now, humanity had to earn it. Send a message to every world, she said finally. The war is over. The work is just beginning. 50 years after the war ended, the galaxy had become something no one expected. The Terran Empire stretched across 300 star systems. 41 different species lived under human rule. They were not slaves. They were not prisoners. They were citizens, with the same rights and protections as any human. This confused many aliens. They had expected revenge. They had expected cruelty. They had expected humans to treat them the way they had treated humans. Instead, humans offered them hospitals, schools, trade, protection, a chance to be part of something larger than themselves. Emperor Junho Beek sat in his office on Earth, reading reports from across the Empire. He was 38 years old, the grandson of Supreme Commander Junho Beek, and he had never known war. He had grown up in peace. Raised to lead an empire that his grandfather had fought to create, his advisors came from 12 different species. Some of them had once voted for humanity's destruction. Now they helped him govern. He called them colleagues. A few he called friends. The colony on Keller 7 is requesting additional medical supplies, his chief advisor said. She was Kalari, a species that had defected to humanity in the 10th year of the war. Her people had expected punishment for their earlier attacks. They had received medicine instead. Approved, Junho said. What else? The memorial ceremony is in 3 hours. Grand Admiral Kong has arrived.
Oh, not.
Today was the 50th anniversary of the Council's surrender. Every year, the Empire paused to remember those who had died, human and alien alike. Everyone who had fallen in a war that should never have happened. The ceremony took place in the rebuilt council chamber, now called the Hall of Unity. Representatives from every species in the Empire gathered there. Some had fought against humanity. Some had fought for them. Some had been born long after the war ended and only knew it from history lessons. Grand Admiral Unikong walked slowly to the podium. She was 94 years old now, her hair white and her steps careful. But her eyes were still sharp. She was the last surviving member of the original diplomatic mission that had made first contact with the Council. She had watched the war begin. She had helped end it. She had spent the last 50 years building the peace. The chamber fell silent as she began to speak. I was there when it started, she said. Her voice was softer than it used to be, but it still carried. I stood on the bridge of the eternal dawn and watched the Council condemn us. I heard them say that humanity was too dangerous to exist. I watched them vote for our extinction. She paused, looking at the alien faces in the crowd. They were right to be afraid, but they were afraid of the wrong thing. She pressed a button and images appeared in the air. Not images of war. Images of what came after. Human doctors treating alien patients. Human teachers in alien schools. Human engineers building homes on worlds they had once bombed. Alien and human children playing together, not knowing that their grandparents had tried to kill each other. They feared our weapons. They should have feared our potential. They feared our anger. They should have feared our compassion. They feared what we would take. They should have feared what we would give. She looked at the former council speaker, now an old being with faded crystal skin. He had spent the last 50 years serving as an advisor to the Empire. He had dedicated his life to undoing the damage his decision had caused. He was not seeking forgiveness. He did not expect it. He simply wanted to help. The old council tried to destroy us, Una continued. They were afraid of what we might become. They were right that we would grow. They were right that we would spread across the galaxy. But they were wrong about what kind of empire we would build. She straightened, her voice growing stronger. We did not build an empire of fear. We did not build an empire of revenge. We built an empire of second chances. We took the species that tried to destroy us and made them our partners. We took the hatred they gave us and turned it into something else. She smiled. It was the smile of someone who had seen the worst of the galaxy and chosen to believe in the best. They called us monsters. We proved them wrong. Not with words. With actions. 50 years of actions. 50 years of peace. 50 years of building something that no one thought was possible. She turned to face the entire chamber. The galaxy forbade humanity from joining them. So we made a new galaxy and invited everyone else to join instead. That is who we are. That is who we have always been. Not conquerors. Not destroyers. Survivors who wanted to belong. The memorial ended with a human tradition that had spread across the stars. 1 minute of silence for the dead. Then applause. Not for victory. Not for conquest. For survival. For peace. For the simple fact that they were all still here, standing together. Later that night, Emperor Junho walked through the gardens of the Imperial Palace. The former council speaker walked beside him. They did not speak for a long time. Finally, Junho broke the silence. Do you regret it? The speaker considered the question. I regret the war. I regret the deaths. I do not regret what it taught us. What did it teach you? The speaker stopped and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships were launching toward unknown systems. They carried crews of dozens of species. They flew under the flag of the Terran Empire, but their mission was older than any flag. It taught us that we were wrong about humans, the speaker said. We thought your greatest strength was your ability to destroy. We were wrong. Your greatest strength is your ability to rebuild. To grow, to turn enemies into friends. That is more terrifying than any weapon, and more beautiful than anything we ever imagined. Junho nodded. He thought about his grandfather, who had fought the first battles. His grandmother, who had raised him after his parents died. All the people who had sacrificed everything so that he could stand here in peace, talking to a former enemy. We did not want this empire, he said. We just wanted to exist. I know, the speaker replied. That is why you deserve it. They stood in silence for a while longer, watching the stars. A young historian would later write, the final words of the official history of the Human Council War. Her conclusion would be taught in schools across the empire for centuries. The council made one critical error, she wrote. They assumed that because humans fought among themselves, they would fragment under pressure. They did not understand that human conflict was preparation. When threatened, humans do not break. They unite. They do not surrender. They adapt. They do not hate their enemies. They simply outlast them. The galaxy forbade humanity from joining. So humanity made a new galaxy and invited everyone else to join instead. That is why they won. That is why they always will. Far from Earth, new ships launched into the unknown. They carried the hopes of 100 species. They flew toward stars that no one had ever visited. They were explorers, scientists, and dreamers, and they were human. Not because of their species, but because they had chosen to be part of something greater than themselves. The galaxy had once feared humanity. Now, it followed them into the darkness, eager to see what wonders they would find together. The war was over. The empire was built. But the story was just beginning. And for the first time in 50,000 years, the galaxy looked toward the future with something it had almost forgotten. Hope.